Welcome to the SkirtWork Podcast.
Yes, we're back. And I'm here with my very good friend and colleague, Lisa Johnson. And Lisa, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, last week, Manda, in our little chat, we touched on AI, and it's the hot topic of the moment. And so I thought it would be good to take an opportunity to have a chat to it about the potential threats to or opportunities in the workplace and how specifically it offers opportunities or threats to women.
I think it's great because Lisa is, I think I could respectfully say a bit of a nerd with our IT. Well, manages shared services, but that basically means, look, realistically, when you have systems and you're in the cloud and all the sorts of things, which I know absolutely nothing about, you have to live inside it all the time, and Lisa does that. So you want to know anything, Lisa's our go-to guru.
And I'm going to be honest and say most of my job is just asking Google.
Yeah. But yes, so I'm very interested in this because obviously I see it from my side of the fence is a little bit more on the legal risk management-y kind of stuff. So very interested in AI, and it's touched our business to a small amount, but it's coming. And it's here, but it's coming in different ways, isn't it, Lisa?
So I think when you look back at history and you look at the disruptors, so where society, culture, workplace changed, there are big moments. The printing press.
I refer to that a lot. People have no idea that the disruption that had.
The fact that was
100%.
the first time. It took the printing press before most people, but particularly women, had access to education. Because before then it was just a small group of people that were able to read and write.
Well, it was normally religion-based, so they were in the monasteries who could read and write, and the general populace, or the very wealthy or the elite of that particular society, but generally speaking, it didn't happen at all.
Yep. And you could see that there was a massive change because by the time you get to the 1800s and you've got Charles Dickens, the way that he sold many of his books are a bit like the way we think of tabloid newspapers.
Yes,
there would be kids standing on the corner with the latest chapter from
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes. That's how that started. Was serialised.
And so that meant that the working class were buying these stories and taking them home and reading.
In the Penny Dreadfuls, they called them.
Yep. And they're just classics now.
Look at it up, Google it. But the Penny Dreadfuls, I still think it's a great title.
So first we had the printing press, and then the next one that springs to mind is the Industrial Revolution, where we was that beginning of the move away from manual labour to machines. And it changed the way people worked, and it changed. Before then, people would be spread out in the countryside because the work was being operated where things happened. Farming, agriculture, all of that stuff happened on the farm, and that's where people worked. With industrialisation came urbanisation. People left the countryside.
Well, they had railroads for a start. So the
the
robber barons in the United States and in the UK, well, we all know about Prince Albert and his steam train and
so
he commissioned, I should say, a lot of what Robbie Lewis.
So it changed society massively, led to urbanisation. And now we've got AI, and it's really being touted as the next disruptor. And
artificial intelligence.
And that it will represent a massive change in the way that we work.
So when the interweb, I shouldn't keep calling it that, when the internet first came into our world, it was certainly the disruptor. So why will this be more of a disruption?
Okay, so I want to talk about two different things just to make a clear distinction when we're talking about what AI is as opposed to automation, because it really is both of them going hand in hand. So automation is where you have systems that you can create a path. So when something triggers an event or a situation or a conversation, the system reacts in a certain way. So this is has been used for some time. This
Mm.
is not new, and it's been prevalent in chatbots. So when you
something like predictive texting, or when
it's
you
more
predictive
like if you
words.
go onto say a telco, God forbid, website, and the little chat bot comes up and goes, do you want to talk to me? And you go yes, and it will have some suggestions.
Yeah,
do you
when
want
I
to
do
talk
that,
to me?
every single thing they suggest is not what I want.
Yeah, I know, me too.
And then they say I have to speak to a human,
which is
basically what I have to do.
But what they do with those suggestions is that they've recognised that X number of customers have similar queries.
Yep,
so
exactly.
they automate it and they go, right, so you want to know about this product, you tick it, and then they'll ask you a further question. And then in the back end, it's going down a pathway and saying, okay, this customer's looking for this, feed them back this specific piece of information. Or it might mean, if you're a sales organisation, send them a text or send them an email with some information. Now, that's not AI. That's just like a process plan, that a tree, really, a knowledge tree that's put together by humans, and the systems are told what to do.
Like when I go on all my legal government ones and it says they've got an online chat, but it's always offline every single time I go on.
Well, the good thing about online chatbots that aren't human is that they are online all of the time.
Exactly.
But so they've been around for a while. Where that's going is it's becoming more fine-tuned, and it's been applied in a much broader range of businesses, and not necessarily through a chatbot situation. So if you're using a big database, for example, it might be that when something goes into that, like a piece of information enters that database or a record status changes, it triggers a reaction. So if I was thinking of it from a recruitment perspective, the status of a candidate changes to active, so that says we know you're actively looking for work. It might send them a text message to say welcome back.
Right.
So there's the machine doesn't have to think. No. It's programmed to do it. So first of all, I wanted to make that distinction because a lot of people think of that as AI, and that's actually just automation. Hugely important.
Parsing as well, that would be automation, do you think? Yeah,
parsing is an automation tool. AI is where you're accessing large language models and you're asking it questions, or you're asking it to do something where it has to pull from all of the data in that large language model to provide an answer. So the large language models that everybody knows about are ChatGPT. You've got Claude. You've got Gemini, which is the Google option. Those are large language models. And that's AI. That's AI. So when we're talking about the threat of AI, we're really talking about the threat of both automation and the replacement of being able to access large language models. So I did a quick Google search because one of the questions that people inevitably ask is, what will AI, how will it affect jobs?
Well, everyone will always bring it back to their own individual circumstances.
And which jobs are under threat from AI. So first of all, and this is, it seems to be a general consensus of a number that's been chucked around the internet, they predict by 2025, so next year, AI will have replaced 85 million jobs. That's a lot of jobs. But here's the kicker. It would have created 97 million jobs.
Right.
So overall, if you're looking at it from a cold statistical point of view, AI is an opportunity. It's not a threat.
So if we got examples of the kinds of work that will go, but then importantly, I think, is the kind of work that will replace it.
Well, I actually don't want to talk about the jobs that will replace it as much as the jobs that are threatened and the jobs that are not threatened. So roles that are currently there that AI will, at this point, never replace or is incapable of replacing. And then I also want to have a chat to you about the kinds of skills that if you were a young person today that you would need to think about cultivating to make yourself a little bit future-proof against the rise of the machine.
So we always hear that my first foray into this world, and I've used it, I don't use it regularly, was particularly around about elections and the influence of bad actors in elections, irrespective of anyone's point of view, of people getting involved in that. And so from there, that's obviously then you think it's very sinister. And adding to that is, why do we need it? Why is it there?
Well, see...
Or is it someone very clever behind a keyboard that's created new programs and going to make themselves a lot of money doing it?
I think, look, if I was going to be really cynical, I think that in some ways it's a product of us being so clever, in terms of going, oh, we can do something, as opposed to asking ourselves if we should
do something. And do I blame Google for all of this? Because if I want to know the answer to anything, I just go to Google?
No.
Oh, sorry. Your search engine of your choice.
Search engine of your choice.
Could be Bing, of course, but do I blame them?
No, I just think it's just progress, right? Someone was going to, in a way, we've been predicting it for so many years. You go back to when we were younger, and you had the Terminator movies with, you had even war games with the lovely Matthew Broderick in it. Way back in the 80s, they were predicting this rise in intelligence of computers. So back then, there was always this threat that computers were going to try and somehow replace humans and take over the world.
2001: A Space Odyssey, where you had HAL.
Yeah.
HAL was like a living, breathing computer.
I think we've always been conscious of the fact that
some of our audience may have to Google that.
We've always been conscious of the fact that it's a possibility. Yeah. But I think that it was just inevitable that it was going to happen. So here is a list of the 10 jobs that AI is predicted to replace, and you're going to need to take a deep breath for some of these. Customer service roles.
Argue that it already happened.
Yeah, in lots of organisations, yes. Car or truck drivers. Now, I'd have to point out that an automated car is probably a better driver than myself, so I'm probably okay with some of that.
Right. I think that's been a bit, that's a bit literally hit and miss.
Yeah, exactly.
In a few cases. Yeah.
Computer programmers. There's one that you wouldn't think. No. But what ChatGPT is, for example, is very good at writing code. So your average computer programmer may be under threat. Research analyst, a paralegal, which is an interesting one. Factory and warehouse workers, because and that's already happening. You've got those big warehouses that are non-manned, so the increase of that in the workplace. Financial traders, I actually think that's not a bad one. I think there'll be a lot of very anxious blokes in bad suits in London worried about that one. Travel advisor, content writer, which is an interesting one, but specifically around short media posts. And this kind of feeds into what you were talking about with bad actors, that they can use AI to put out bulk disinformation and to write stuff so, the tone of it appears legitimate, but also for repetitive content creation and graphic designers. So those are the jobs that they say they're under threat. Now, here's the ones they say will not be replaced by AI. Teacher.
I should hope not. I should hope not. Yes.
Social workers. Therapists. Yeah, there could be a good reason for that one. The handy person. A lawyer. With luck.
Well, yes, I do need a lot of those in my life, I have to admit.
The HR specialist.
Well, of course, because that's right. We as HR.
Writer.
Yes.
And artist.
So they're very interesting, isn't it? There's a common theme amongst all of those where our sponsor's name is People to People. And I know over the years we've seen, just to digress a tad, where we've always seen new entrants into the recruitment industry, because that's one that we know a little bit about. They're going to automate this and do away with recruitment consultants. And yes, some should be done away with. I do agree with you. But all of this kind of stuff. But no, it doesn't, because eventually there needs to be still a bit of this. It's one person sitting on the other side of a desk, okay, by Zoom, but they're still interacting.
Yeah.
And what's also I find interesting is that we know kids at uni, and we've got the recent experience with our kids going through uni, or just assignments and things, is that the teachers now or education staff have software that pick up where they may have Googled a chunk of stuff and whatnot. And I imagine that there's obviously going to be software that will pick up if they have written their PhD through ChatGPT.
You'd hope so. You'd absolutely hope so.
So I think that's interesting. There was definitely a theme regarding the jobs that wouldn't be replaced.
And I think what is very interesting is that a lot of those jobs are traditionally jobs that are women focused. That women are attracted to work.
To do
you can't expect. Imagine trying to do childcare with AI.
I wouldn't mind.
Oh my God, that would be hysterical. Trying to negotiate with a 3-year-old.
We were just talking about that in the office, just about one of our managers was just saying that his 3-year-old daughter all he did was make a toast.
Well, and cut it the wrong way. End of the world.
He said to his wife, what have I done?
Seriously, don't think AI could deal with a 3-year-old in the toast situation. But what I do think is interesting is that these industries, they're the human contact industries where you need that personal interrelation. And one of the things that they suggested were the kinds of skills to cultivate if you're for the future. And they are basic mathematics.
Oh, yes.
Never unimportant to be able to balance your own bank account.
I really am of the idea it should be compulsory, but in some form or another.
Strong verbal and written communication skills, creativity, people management, emotional intelligence. We know a lot of people that lack that one.
Oh, yes, well,
it's critical thinking and problem solving. Now, I read that with some smugness, thinking, well, I can tick that one off and tick that one off. But again, a lot of these attributes are quite female, which I think is really interesting because, we've talked about gender pay gaps. We've talked about, the roles. We've talked about aging and all sorts of things. But with AI, the skills to cultivate are not STEM. They're not the science and technology skills. They're the humanitarian skills.
Well, maybe it may not be seen as skirt work. It may not be. It might just be work. And so, therefore, some of those industries that have been traditionally highly female oriented will just be people oriented. Now that'll be very interesting to see what happens to any pay discrepancies, let me just say.
Well, I did remember reading another article saying that you could predict that those industries become more highly paid.
That's right.
They require humans.
It's interesting because once again, as we were talking about our kids going through leaving uni and getting their first real job, if you want to call it that, their career jobs and whatnot, and given that we've very much in the industries that we've been working in, sales and marketing related. Now we're if you're politely called the back end of that. So we're there, but they're there. That's how any business develops and earns revenue, obviously. And so we were talking about it. That I think. Once again, I find people hide behind email or hide behind, and it might become hide behind AI, whereas in those kinds of industries, they have to do this. And we were saying to our young blokes, saying, well, look, pick up the phone. I'm still amazed how many people in sales and marketing are call reluctant. And I said, well, it's still how you sell. Someone still has to hear and evaluate and critically evaluate what someone's saying. So they bulk things such as that very cookie cutter, if you like, maybe not. But I mean, where you need to change someone's opinion to think your point of view to buy from you requires a little bit of this stuff.
Yeah, well, the whole point, and if we were going to apply it to the recruitment industry, which again is logical for us because that's where we work, the advantage to our industry with AI is that you can automate the administrative function.
Exactly.
And in theory, that frees consultants up to have more conversations, to be more creative about how they're interacting with people. And I mean that both from
internally and
externally.
And also, how often have you said, oh, I can't do that, I'm bogged down with admin, or there's something wrong with the system. FYI, there never is. It's the individual.
And also
controversial, but true.
And also, it would also mean we'd need to change how we KPI, how we look at the value of our employees, because often it's easy to set KPIs around administrative tasks because they're measurable, right? How many calls have you made? How many emails have you sent? How many times have you hit this button? If you were in customer service, how many calls have you processed? So we set KPIs around that. Whereas AI allows you to become more outcome focused.
And on that note, we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a minute. We're just going to have a very quick break where we're going to hear from our sponsors.
Why people to people over other recruitment agencies?
Why people to people over other agencies?
At P2P, you will have a tailored consultant that has an expert knowledge in a particular industry. For instance, I am only looking after temp and contract legal support. So if you're looking for someone that is knowledgeable in their market and can provide you daily, weekly, monthly updates on what they're seeing, P2P is the agency for you.
Internationally recognised, so there is an opportunity to collaborate with many different branches. But from a proactive perspective, we are able to answer clients' needs.
We have great technology in place. We have really great relationships with lots of different clients and a lot of candidates in the market. We have specialist consultants within the team, so you're not just sort of working with anyone recruiting anything. It will be a specialist in that particular industry.
You can tell that it's more than just a business relationship with a lot of the clients that we have at People to People. It's a genuine relationship, so I think we would have that to offer over most of our competitors.
I'm really proud of what we stand for and how we operate. We always operate with integrity, professionalism, and we really pride ourselves on providing the best service to our clients.
And we're back. So, Lisa, you were just saying there just about how we might have to change key performance indicators or KPIs. So if you can elaborate on that.
Well, it's about the conversion. The conversion of a potential customer.
Or an activity into a result.
Yeah, exactly, into a result.
Yeah.
And often in our industry, if you're looking at it, you build these KPIs around administrative activities. And there's a logic to it, because the more you do this leads to more of that, leads to more of that, leads to so forth. But I think you would agree, and we're certainly hearing it, I've heard it across the industry, that it's harder to connect with people than ever before. Our customers, i.e. the people who give us job vacancies, are harder to connect with. They don't return voicemails. It's harder to get them to agree to a meeting. You can leave a lot of calls before you get an interaction with them.
And that's why we've developed marketing tools. That means there's something in it for them to, well, in our world, it's what's going on out in the market, in their market, or the salary market in general, to induce a conversation so that you can do that.
Exactly. And if you were looking at if AI took a lot of that administration away, then potentially the employee's freed up to do more networking.
And also the person you're wanting to network with has been freed up from their administration, so that they can actually look at having some suppliers or new suppliers come into their business to hopefully make, when they're outsourcing, or making their life a bit easier as well.
And look, we've been talking about this for years when we train our consultants, that the worst thing to do is to ring a business, say, have you got a job? When actually what you want to say to them is, have you got a problem? Let's talk about how I can help you solve the problem.
And you've got an open-ended question that you can then formulate a conversation so you have a little bit of this stuff going on.
Yeah.
Which I talk about all the time.
But it's about, and we're definitely not there yet, and so I can't give you the answers, but it's about being more creative in terms of how you're connecting with people, being more focused on that human touch, right? So if the system can take care of all the basic stuff, finding out when a candidate's available for work, finding out if we've got the latest resume on file, all of that. Like, again, I'm sorry, I'm talking from a recruitment perspective.
But also, as I'm just jumping in there, because we've always described what we do as a high-touch industry. There's lots of points of connection that you should have with another human being to achieve an outcome.
Yeah.
Or provide the service that person is paying for.
Yeah. But I think there's real opportunity. I think the danger is for employers, and I'm going to go broader than a recruitment here. I'm just going to go across the board. If you're working in a job where you can hide behind administration, you won't be able to. So if you're able to, you know, particularly for salespeople, it is quite a threat to salespeople because it's really easy to say, look at all the work I'm doing. And then and it distracts from the fact that you've not got results. Whereas now we would be expecting to say, well, you don't have to worry about any of that. So let's put more of our training, let's put more of our creativity and our innovation into helping you connect as a person with another person. And if they can't do that, if that's something that they're not comfortable doing, then I think that's the moment where they go, you know what, this is not for me.
Yeah.
And so there could be that we could predict that there'll be quite a lot of turnover in staff as the systems threaten how comfortable they are in their roles. And if employers are asking people to become more creative and more and look, not everybody's a problem solver. Not everyone has those skills. Not everybody has emotional intelligence. And I don't even know if you can learn it.
No, I don't think you can learn EI.
I think you either have it or you don't. But those are the things that are likely to become the future, what's going to be in demand. People who can read a room.
Well, that's just on that point, EI that we talk about. Probably we're glossing over a few of these buzzwords, and apologies for all of that management speak. But EI is that, if you like, that feeling, that sixth sense. So quite often people call it women's intuition, because I know that's why we have a lot of women in the recruitment industry, because they're quite good at, as you said, reading a room or watching the facial expression, knowing when you've lost somebody. Then you just have to change direction. It's a hard thing to teach somebody.
Yeah. It's being able to connect with it's also
it's a behavioural character.
You have to have high levels of empathy, I think. Like, you have to be able to understand where another person is coming from, and then being able to adapt your pitch, adapt your process or your approach to that person so that it works.
So they could, for example, AI can't do that.
No.
But you could use AI once you have assessed a situation, thinking, well, this is how I'm going to get Lisa to buy from me. This is what I need to do, and this is how I need to approach her, and this is how many touch points I need. But I could use AI to actually assist me. I could put that there, and then I can use it to then do the interpersonal connection.
At this point, and look, I don't know what the future holds, but at this point, how AI would help you like that is if you knew that to talk to me, you had to be to a degree formal, but you can't be really stiff. You can ask AI to write you something. Yeah. You say, look, I need it to be professional, but I don't want it to be really stiff. And
it's not a legal letter, but it is a business letter. So there's an element of formality.
So it needs to be a bit of friendliness. So you use AI for that. So to be able to change the way you communicate with a person, so it's more likely to be received by them in a positive way. And then there'll be other people where you have to say, look, it needs to be very short, very sharp, to the point, make it less than 50 words, but this is what I want to say. And AI can help you do that. It could help us write better job descriptions. It can help businesses like with their social media. I mean, I think it's unique to every business, I suppose. But I think, and I'm going to bring it back to this, because I think the first revolution is automation. And we talk about AI, but AI, I don't think is going to have as big an impact as fast as what automation is having. And the other thing to keep in mind is that AI is a bit stupid, right? It's not a genius. It's not Hal. It's not the computer from War Games. It's not Arnold Schwarzenegger with Rock from 1984. It's not any of that. It's a large language model. It's a bit stupid, and it often gets things wrong. So we also have to be really careful here in saying we need to use it judiciously. We have to be careful how we're using it. We have to not necessarily trust what it's telling us. So if I wanted to know, for example, I asked AI the other day, because I've got it as a sidebar. I says, how many days in April? It could tell me there were 30 days in April. It's fine. That's fine. But if I was to ask it a different kind of question, it might just come up with rubbish answers.
Well, look, know some of those early generation models. You know, you're reading something, you think, oh, well, this is ChatGPT. Or not so much that, you know, that's AI. One thing I did have a bit of fun with, I have to admit, I wrote a resignation letter. Just wanted to say, okay, write a resignation in how Fran Lebowitz would write it. Now, for those, she's a bit of a hero of mine, a wonderful New York raconteur, wonderful writer. I'd highly encourage anyone to see Pretend It's a City. I think it's Netflix, with one of her good, she knows everyone, Martin Scorsese, for heaven's sake. But I just loved the sign off of this. It says, yours in withering disdain. And so the day I do resign, I am using that. I've got it, and that's what I will be using.
I saw one, and I think it was on formerly known as Twitter, might have been that, where someone had asked to write a complaint email to a telco in the voice of Moira from Schitt's Creek.
Moira Rose. That's fabulous.
Oh, my God.
Actually, I think we did a resignation letter in the voice of Moira Rose as well.
Oh,
classic.
Fabulous.
They're
fabulous.
Both,
so that is
pretty,
a bit of fun.
A bit of fun. But what about the bane of salespeople's lives are tenders? Now, I've seen someone bring up the query of, would we have tenders written by AI? Because you've actually got to know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah, and I don't look. There are some of the limitations I think with AI at the moment. So with ChatGPT, the fastest chunk of its model is 2021. It's 3 years old, so the world has moved on.
Yeah.
Also, no. I think
you have to look, I think what will end up happening is that will become a bit of a fashion, because tendering for business, particularly with maybe government departments or very, very large organisations, is an incredibly onerous task. Yes, I can hear people say, if you want the business, that's what you do. Yeah, I agree, 100%, but it is incredibly onerous, and a lot of it quite irrelevant. But anyway, in my opinion, I think just a bit of a job creation scheme, but that's just me. But so I think there will come time where, people rely on it, and then of course the detection software will become much more sophisticated, and they'll say, well, you've just written that from AI.
It's more likely to be they just don't care that it's been written by AI, because there's an expectation that it will be.
Well, people might use that as a test case to see if they get it through, and if it gets past the keeper.
But I think one of the things that makes it really difficult is you can't go to AI and say, can you please do an analysis of my revenue?
Yeah.
Because your revenue's not there.
Yeah.
And I think...
Well, we hope not.
And look, and I think, and this is something, a tip for young players or
all players, actually.
All players.
Yeah, all players.
Is be careful what you ask ChatGPT. Like, you are feeding the machine when you ask it questions. So if you feed it your financial data because you want it to write something, it's keeping that.
Yes. You may find you have an IT policy in your organisation that may prevent you from doing that. On that note, I may going to have to re-look at ours just to make sure that is there's a general all-round clause covering. Please don't do that.
Yeah. So
no matter how frustrated
so
you are
when
with
you're
tender
doing
process.
tenders, often you're having to respond with specific examples from your own business.
Exactly.
And so I can't see.
There's a lot of generalist stuff you have to do too. But look, you're right. There's very specific information.
If there's generalist stuff, hell yes, use Chat. I mean, just the boringness of it. You could use it, but and you can give it a piece of text and say, can you rewrite this and make it 50 words and make it professional? I think that's fine, but don't include sensitive information in that. If you don't have a system that privatizes that before it hits ChatGPT or the language model of your choice, then leave that bit out and put it back in afterwards when it's written the rest of it.
I've definitely seen it used a lot for cover letters.
Yeah.
Which I think are useless.
Look,
I've never read one. I think they're terrible things. But they all motherhood statements and blah blah. But anyway, they may. A lot of organisations still love cover letters, particularly from graduates, and so I have seen ChatGPT in particular because that is the most. It's almost a bit become like Hoover for vacuum cleaner, hasn't it? Or Google for any kind of search engine, become quite generic. But it's only one of them that has been. In fact, that Gemini, I think, is actually. I've seen that even the next step.
Yeah,
you've got that advanced Gemini.
Yeah,
you guys have gotten it. Just that next step.
But I don't think that it's any different in some ways because from being in this industry for a long time that one of the reasons that you and I don't like cover letters is because it's full of motherhood statements. It uses the on-trend words.
Yeah.
And when everybody says that they're exceptional and that they have fantastic people skills and
it's a bit like the old must have good I have great communication skills. I haven't had anyone ever write, I don't have great communication skills. At least it's meaningless.
Yeah. So, and that's why we disregard them because it's like, well, everybody says that. I'm not actually going to find out until I actually talk to you.
Yes, precisely. So it might just be a formal little introduction, but I mean, look, I've never. It's in 30 years. But anyway, look.
So I don't object.
Some people love them, but people go to angst. I really would prefer. Actually, let's be honest. People just go straight on LinkedIn. In our world, they don't even bother looking at resume. They just want to have a look. How have you presented yourself to the world on LinkedIn? I know we're moving. Get your AI to help you with that, but yeah. So that's just in our world anyway that we look at that.
But I don't object to people using AI to do their cover letters simply because they don't mean anything.
No, they don't. They really don't.
I really don't even know why businesses ask.
We are in furious agreement on this point, Lisa. Absolutely. We're not agreeing to disagree on that one at all. What do we need to do, Lisa?
Well, here are some of the benefits of AI that have been espoused. It will allow your employees to be more focused and to work on engaging tasks. That's potentially true. You should be more efficient. And there's the potential for shorter work days. Now, that would be a bit of an industrial revolution right there. You will have more informed decision making. We should see increased innovation and problem solving. And I think every business really wants to have increased innovation and problem solving. And I don't mean that every business wants to go out and cure cancer or solve the world's ills, but when every business there are touch points where things are inefficient, and if people are freed up and you say, how do you think we could fix this, some of the best ideas are going to come from people that are working on the coalface, and they would, they're going to be able to say, look, this is the problem and this is how I would solve it. More opportunities for that interaction between management and people in the business, and more personalised customer interaction.
Well, I would vote for AI just on that alone, I think. Because I was going to say one of the reasons of the lack of wages growth that we know is productivity. So anything that will increase productivity. Now, that obviously this conversation will still concern a lot of people, Lisa, that work in those areas, and we're not being flippant about any of that.
No.
It was just a statement of fact. It's not whatever, because people that are on the assembly line and the supply chain line. But look, there will still be a need for humans. I mean, we know that those massive Amazon warehouses, whatnot, do use robotics when they're storing these things, but there's still, as we know, still a very strong human element in that. Whether that goes completely, well, it's a bit like driverless cars. People, I think the jury's still out on anything to do with anything that's driverless. Some may query, as you said, there could be a driver sitting in the seat, but really it still is driverless. But that will be it's just in these earlier stages. So who are the leaders as countries that are really getting into this big time, do you think, Lisa? It's still the main Western countries?
Look, I think it's global. I don't think you should ever underestimate the Asian countries. Countries like China and India.
Exactly.
Particularly, they will be very actively looking at how they can develop AI and use it. I think, and I heard this at 2 recent conferences that I went to. As an employee, as a human being, if you don't look for the opportunity with AI, you will get left behind. So if you're in a role where you think your job is going to be threatened, if you're in that administrative customer service role, but you know that you're an ideas person, you know that you've got these other skills, make sure people know. Put your hand up. If someone says, I've got a project and I need someone to help with this, put your hand up.
Exactly.
And say, I want to be involved in that, because don't wait for employers to reinvent jobs for you. I think
they're also busy doing other stuff, so then you can be overlooked.
And I do think that there will be a lot. Look, employees to most businesses are not just a number. Okay, they're not just a
100%,
variable.
yeah.
They're a human being, and most employers don't want to. Well, sorry, they do want to do the right thing.
They absolutely
by their
100%. Given how many we deal with.
So if they offer training opportunities so that your job segues into something else, go for the training opportunities. Talk to your manager. Talk to your colleagues. Talk to recruiters. Okay, because not all businesses are going to be do the right thing, but there will be opportunities out there. And then if worst comes to worst, consider retraining, right? Consider those jobs where there is a future. Look, we need more teachers, right? We need more teachers, and people with life experience can have a really positive effect, not just in schools, but in TAFE teaching, in vocational education. So think about retraining. We need more nurses too. And look, these are some of the hardest jobs. Don't ever think that being a teacher or nurse is an easy job. But you could think about retraining if you're, if there is no other opportunity for you.
Well, I mean, I know people who have. Certainly years ago, you think, I cannot wait to retire. I really hope I can get myself to here so I can retire. And then and I'm very close to that. I am that age now. And then you sort of think, well, hang on, but what am I going to do? And so there's a cohort of people out there, I know it's the old use it or lose it, who are retraining. They may be going and getting DipEds, which was, I don't know if it's still called that, but Diploma of Education, that then they can go and do some teaching, or maybe retraining or nurse's aid or something to do with health. And then
care.
Yes, well,
aged care, huge industry. Huge.
A friend of mine, she retrained as a counsellor. She had a corporate career for many, many years, took a big redundancy because she'd been with this organisation a very long period of time. Went through, got a degree, and put aside. I just said, well, thank goodness somebody's doing it. I couldn't think of anything worse. But she full on started with lifelong volunteering, and then obviously all of that
the
kind
other
of stuff.
thing that I think that people like, we need a bit of a change. So for the last X amount of years when our children have gone to high school, it's kind of been an expectation that university is the next step, right?
Yeah.
And
that's changing a lot.
Even in Western Sydney, there's been that element, well, particularly with the schools that my kids went to, both public schools, by the way, there was an element of you kind of, well, first of all, the aiming to get the kids to year 12, but then hopefully transition them. We need more encouragement for young people to consider vocational education.
Without a doubt. Look, that's exactly right.
And the trades. Because my partner, he's a qualified sheet metal worker, and you know, he's in his mid-50s and he could put his hand up right now and walk into 5 or 6 jobs because there just aren't enough qualified sheet metal workers anymore. And I know that there was this expectation, like when Ford and Holden went away, that manufacturing, there was no point training in some of those skills. Let me just tell you that there's going to be an increase. We're going to need, like, if we want to build public housing in Australia, we need more builders. We need more brickies. We need more plumbers. We need more people that can develop their own business through their trade skills. And it should never be the path that we expect the dumb kids.
Oh, yeah. Well, look, it's so interesting you mentioned that. So my son went to private school and I went to a private school and his father went to a private school. Now, when I was at school, it was a girls' school. All the girls, if they were, and there was a very, very, very clever girls, very clever. No, I was somewhere, but I was not in that cohort. So if they were very good at STEM, it was automatically medicine. And if they were very good at the humanities, it was automatically law. That was it. That's it. And so was just before the business degree really took off. And when that took off, I thought, that one's for me. That's where I'm going. And I didn't look back. Now, it was the same when my husband was at school too. That was exactly, or the sort of, even the sports that were offered. But our son, so interesting. So for a start, let's just talk uni to one side. First of all, there wasn't an expectation. They have some of the kids can do classes at the local TAFE, and then it contributed to their HSC. Son had a mate who loved film editing, and they didn't offer that at the school, so he went up to the local TAFE and did film edit, which is great, and I think that's what he does now, which is brilliant. So in my son, so the kids were great at STEM. I know only one who now has transferred into medicine. They're all doing engineering. Every different which way of engineering. Yeah, there's a few doing law. That is still pretty popular. But boy, has that business degree just, well, it took off in my era, and that's what our son did. It took off. But what the other side of it is, with all the careers and that we went through, and this was that was in 2020, it was talking about all the different types of pathways. That was a very, very, so there were very, very, very bright boys that essentially had completed their HSC by about year 10 or whatever. I mean, they were just so far advanced. So they went off and did various courses at Macquarie University in Sydney that was just to keep them interested, because they're still only 16 or 17-year-old boys. So now they're very clever kids.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is that was open to them doing all of these other types of pathways. And I was very clear that, yes, I know everyone here's private school, they're leaders. Well, it really didn't feel like that at all. It was very much, right, okay, so the more you've got, the more you're expected to do. So there were so many kids that went off to TAFE and did all of these different elements. Now, my son and his mates, yes, they're at uni, but there's a few starting to move around. Some might have dropped out of the original and then they're going and doing something more vocationally based. It's just such a different mindset. And I was really pleased with that.
Yeah.
So if that's what they wanted to do, but I did say to my son he absolutely had to do maths for the HSC. He was going to drop it, and I said, look, even if he did general maths, and I'm now to this day, because he had to do stats at uni, and I just said, look, just please do it. And he did, and I think he sort of begrudgingly said, but I'm so pleased. I
have a good friend, and when her youngest boy was 16, he was going to a private school here in Sydney, and he just did not enjoy school, not particularly academic, really struggled. And I'm not saying he's stupid, because he's not. He just didn't it
fit
wasn't
into that particular
pathway.
Right. Yeah, that's kids. Yeah.
So my friend had a meeting with the school, and they were the ones saying this is not the right place for him. And she was like, well, can he do vocational?
Yeah.
Can he stay here, do classes, but also do trades thing? And they said, we're a private school, we don't do trades.
Well, not all private schools are the same.
No, they're not.
No.
But there's a real life example of where some education facilities they're going to
have to change. They will have to change. And so what I liked is the fact that they really wanted to keep the kids. It was a Catholic school our son went to, and they were very much about, let's find the right thing for you. We want to keep you in the school family, and that's what they did. There was some really interesting stuff. So, as I said, this mate of our son, he film editing, and so he did that at TAFE.
But I also think we need smart kids to actually think of vocational care as a legitimate, valued job.
Well, it wasn't even discussed when I was at school. No. If you were bright, and as I said, STEM girls went and did medicine, and humanities girls went and did law. That was it.
I was at high school in a very small town, and we literally had 20 kids at year 12, and we were the biggest cohort that the school had ever had. And the majority of us went to university, and we were at that stage, we were the biggest cohort ever to go to university.
So I've always said, look, even when, I mean, I know you did it with your kids too. And I said, look, I don't care what you do when you finish the HS. I really don't. But you have to do something. I don't care whether it's TAFE, uni, on the job.
Get a job.
But you have to have some form of tertiary learning, whatever form that takes. And that's what I say now. And there are certain professions, as we know now, you absolutely have to have a degree, accounting being one. You really do. If you want to have a career, when we left school, you could get away with a diploma. Well, that's all changed. And then it wasn't just the degree, then you had to get a professional qualification. So, but look, and that's in that world. But as I said, as long, and I would give that advice to any kid, stay at school as long as you can. But then if you don't, at least do some other form of learning. If you're fortunate enough to have an employer that will teach you everything on the job, all the better.
Well, I think now, Amanda.
But the other thing too, bear in mind sometimes without a slip of paper, rightly or wrongly, irrespective of what type of paper, that will limit you.
I also think, though, that there are a real broad range of courses that are available through TAFE now, which are free.
Yeah.
Including getting into computers. Yeah. Like if you want to, like my son is at Macquarie, and his aim is to get a degree around cybersecurity. Again, I think he wants to be a hacker.
Oh dear.
But
he'll never be without a job if he gets into. It's like anyone that wants to go into superannuation. You will never be without a job.
He's going to be. I hope it's a white hacker. The good hacker, as opposed to
like the old white and red Russians.
Yeah, exactly. He'll be one of the good ones. But there are, and when he finished school, we were looking at those options, and there are lots of TAFE courses that are free and they're open to anybody. So if you're someone who hasn't worked for a while because you've been a stay-at-home parent, look at TAFE. Look at the 100%. Free courses. Think about things. Do all of them. Do a mixture of things. Find your groove.
And we're based in a major capital city here in Sydney, and I'm from a country town, as Lisa is, in New Zealand, and so we know that there's not the opportunities that people that have only ever lived their lives in a big city just take for granted, that is just not available to regional people in country towns. Now, I'm from a larger country town like Lisa is, but you're right. And so thankfully, there's online. It doesn't really replace but there are other alternatives, thank goodness.
And I think, Manda, there's a lot of things that small towns do. There's a lot of agility in small towns.
Resilience.
And resilience that aren't in large places. Like I think about my home.
Spoon-fed really here.
Well,
you know,
yeah, exactly. In my hometown, which is a very small coastal town on the west coast of New Zealand, one high school, and the country kids had to travel in to get to the high school.
Yeah.
And there wasn't even a TAFE. If you wanted to go to TAFE, you had to trundle down like quite some time, quite some distance away. But we had a really innovative guy who was a fisherman, and he decided to open a fishing school, and he particularly targeted the kids that were very disengaged with normal education. And he put them through fishing school. They got formal qualifications that became like TAFE accredited. And I can't tell you how many kids he essentially saved by doing that, because he gave them skills, he gave them a career, they earned good money, they could go on and have successful, productive lives. So sometimes in small towns you get those people.
And can I just segue very neatly back to AI? And AI can't do that.
No.
So I was going to say, just coincidentally, we always finish up with a what are you watching, reading, listening to situation. And I know we're running out of time. So I was just going to say, I'm reading a book at the moment about the life of B. Miles. Now, you talk about a disruptor. And it's just so interesting. We've been talking about disruption today. Just coincidentally, I'm reading this. B. Miles, or short for Beatrice Miles, was a Sydney identity. She was born in 1902. I haven't finished the book yet, but she died in 1972. But she came from a wealthy family, went to a private school, got into medicine. But she had, they're not sure whether this contributed. She was always very quirky, and in those days, quirky meant mental hospitals. We politely call psychiatric institution, and there tended to be more women than a lot of women than
those
men.
Hysterical
but
ladies.
She did have encephalitis lethargica, and so they're not quite sure. But she was if that contributed. But she was a prolific writer, and so there's a lot of first-hand accounts of her time in. Now it's all said, but she's a real character. So, for example, I'll give you an example of this woman. She also wore shorts. If you see photos of her, you'd think she just walked down the street today. So very unusual. It's not stockings and skirts. And, obviously imagine the constabulary took a very dim view, because you were either a street walker, you're a prostitute, the only way you would earn your money. But she wasn't. But the thing is that a classic example, on the day that the Sydney Harbour Bridge was opened here in Sydney, which was the 19th of March 1932, and the reason I know that so well is the day my father was born. So there was famous where the Premier was meant to cut the ribbon, and a man called de Groot cut it instead. And, anyway, B. Miles, what she used to do was she would, in those days, the cars had runner boards, and she'd just jump on there and just catch a lift. One was from Sydney to Newcastle. And what the road was like, this is 1930. Anyway, on the day the Sydney Harbour Bridge opened, she sat on the bonnet of a truck, and she was on the bonnet of the first truck to cross the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So she is, I could imagine, she would be considered quirky now, but she was, like a bit ahead of her time. Her father did commit her. She was in and out. So at the moment, she's probably in her 30s that I'm reading about. But look, her name is B. Miles. She used to spell it B-double-E, but it's obviously B-E-A, or short for Beatrice Miles. And she was quite a Sydney, she used to be written up in the papers and the whole thing, but quite a Sydney identity. And she was a disruptor. It's by Rose Leslie. I should add that. Beg your pardon. What am I saying? It's Rose Willis. Sorry.
I was going to say Rosemary.
Yeah,
Leslie.
no, I was watching Vigil. I
Thrones.
watched Vigil last night. Rose Leslie's in it. I'm really sorry. So, B. Miles by Rose Willis. I better double check that, but we'll put it on the bottom anyway. But it's a great read.
So I'm going to recommend a book and a series, and also to watch the ABC for Virginia Trioli's interview with Trent Dalton.
Oh, yes. I don't.
Trent Dalton
I've
wrote
tried,
Boy
I know,
Swallows
Universe.
Universe.
I've tried, but I haven't been able to do that.
What? Watch it.
Yeah, no.
That's interesting.
No, I know. It's
I
just,
find
look,
it-
I will. Look, I haven't read the book, spoiler yet, but I know all about it and the whole thing. Oh, I just find some of those subject matters really tough.
I think that's the whole point.
I know. I
Look,
do know that. I just have to be in the right frame of mind to read a few of those and whatever. But he's a very prolific, highly recommended author.
The series, I do have to admit, I haven't read the book. I've watched the TV series.
Apparently it was very closely aligned to the book.
Yeah. And it's very powerfully told. And at the end, it's about overcoming adversity.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But it's such a snapshot into 1980s
life in
Queensland
Brisbane life.
Yeah.
Once again, the good old days weren't really that good.
No. But I would recommend it to people if you haven't seen it.
No, well, look,
the fashion is there. They've got my partner can attest that they've used the period correct BMX bikes.
Well, like, I did see the workman's shorts. I thought, oh God, they're bringing back memories. Bringing back were always far too short with footy socks and dust and desert boots
and the striped shirt.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, my husband even looked at something the other day and he wants an overshirt and he was looking. There were flannelettes and I said, there will be divorce. I'm telling you, there is no flannelette shirts in this house.
Oh, I've got a funny thing to tell you.
I said, if you do, you need to have the swagger to pull that off. Like, he was looking at some surfy website and I said, you need to look and act like that. And you don't.
Well, Manda and I have a certain event that we have coming up. And I said to one of the people who this event is for that my partner and my child are wearing flannel to the after day the next day. And he laughed and I said, so we're bringing Western Sydney to you.
A lot of those in my hometown too. Well, on that very happy note, well, look, I think that will generate a lot of interest and we'd love to hear from you, of course. Lisa, well, can't say she knows everything about AI, but she certainly knows a hell of a lot more than the rest of us because, once again, being early adopters, it's all very new. Thank you very much for listening and, heaven forbid, watching. And we will see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.
And, of course, if you would like to listen to the SkirtWork podcast, you can find us anywhere where you get your podcasts. And you can also watch us on YouTube, heaven forbid. Lisa and I would much prefer this to be audio, but no, we're being videoed as well. So please subscribe, send us a comment. We would love to hear from you.